Hey YouTube, so this is my second part of glycemic index stuff, and I want to talk to you about which foods are low glycemically and which foods are high glycemically, and why that matters to weight loss and then also doesn't matter. Because if you just eat low glycemically, you still may be not eating the most healthy foods. For instance, peanut M&Ms and Snickers bars are low glycemically, and watermelon is high glycemically. But as are carrots. Carrots are also a high glycemic food, a medium to high glycemic food. However, this is because it's 50 grams of carbohydrates that are measured in the index. And to get 50 grams of carrots, 50 grams of carbohydrates of carrots, it's something like 5 cups of carrots. And most of us do not eat 5 cups of carrots as a serving. So even though they're high glycemically, they are low because of the amount that you usually eat them in. Snickers bars, same thing. It doesn't take a lot of Snickers to reach 50 grams of carbs. So obviously there are still some high caloric foods that are low on the glycemic index, even though they take a long time for your blood sugars to spike. So that's one piece. High on the glycemic index are things like rice, potatoes. Pasta is medium high, although obviously rice noodles would be pretty high. A lot of the gluten-free pastas and the gluten-free other items are made with a rice base, and so they can be very high glycemically for you if you have trouble controlling your sugar levels. Then that's not the way to go. On the low end are things like proteins, so meats, also cheeses, dairy products are for the most part pretty low, eggs, and also olive oil, the healthy oils, olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, those types of things are very low glycemically. Brown rice, better than white rice. Also basmati rice, better than jasmine. As for pasta, the whole grain pasta is better than the regular pasta. Fruits have carbs in them, but of course they're much healthier for you than the other carbs. They release a little bit slower. They're a little more complex, if you've heard about complex carbs. Low on the glycemic index are candies such as peanut butter M&Ms, or peanut M&Ms, and Snickers bars. But again, that doesn't mean that they're good for you. It just means they release their sugar slower than things like potatoes and rice. When you are looking to lower your glycemic index intake, your glycemic intake, I guess, you should also be looking to increase your fiber. That's going to be the best thing to be losing weight. It's going to keep you fuller as you move from those carbs to the vegetables. And things like apples and oranges, pearl barley, carrots, green peas, chickpeas, whole wheat bread, those types of things are lower on the glycemic index but still have some fiber, as well as oatmeal and apricots, just stuff like that. And high fiber can keep you full longer. But of course, if you're upping your fiber intake, up your water intake, because I really had to. Trust me, it works a lot better. Anyway, glycemic load, I want to talk about that, because that is actually what I look at, not the glycemic rating. Because glycemic rating, while it's good to know where the food falls from 0 to 100, it doesn't take into account serving size. So something may be a high glycemic food like carrots, like I said earlier, and yet when you look at the actual portion size, it's a very low glycemic food. Same with pasta. Pasta is a medium glycemic food, but most people, when they eat pasta, they eat 2 cups of pasta at a time. And the problem with that is that's very high glycemic intake of food. But a real serving size of pasta is only a half a cup, which is barely anything compared to what I had been eating. And so basically, to get glycemic load, you take the glycemic index number, the rating, and you multiply by the grams of carbohydrates in that food, and then you divide by 100. So the glycemic index, the glycemic load is the number that you get. And for the load, low for glycemic load is a number of 10 or less, and medium is 11 to 19, and high is 20 or more. So glycemic load is a better way to count how much glycemic, how your foods are affecting your blood sugars throughout the day. If you want to be on a healthy, for weight loss, glycemic index, glycemic load diet plan, your glycemic load should be it should be less than 100 glycemic load per day is what you should be eating. My doctor told me 60 to 80 for me, but your results may vary, so do check. So if I know that white rice has a glycemic load of 26, it's pretty high. Carrots have a glycemic load of 3.9, so they're very low. So the nice thing about glycemic load is that it takes into account your portion size. So then you also have to make sure that you're eating these things in a portion size. So let's say jasmine rice. If you have a cup of jasmine rice, your glycemic load is 70. At a half cup, it's only 35. You cut it in half because you're cutting the amount in half. 35 is still a high glycemic load, but it isn't crazy like 70, because if you have a whole cup of rice, that's almost all your food for the day. Glycemically, again, we're not counting calories, we're counting glycemic load numbers. Brown rice has a glycemic index of 50. Therefore, on the glycemic load, a half a cup of it is 12.5. A whole cup of it is 26. So it's still pretty high, but getting only a half a cup of it brings it down to a medium glycemic load level. What I've been using and what my books have been recommending to me is the website www.nutritiondata.com. And what you get with nutritiondata.com is a list of foods that you can search by, a list of foods. And I'll show it to you here. You can see this. So this is, I looked up Japanese soba noodles because they're buckwheat noodles, and they've got the nutrition facts on a bunch of foods. This is generally a good idea for anybody trying to lose weight. They've got a nutritional target map, which I still haven't figured out what that means, and caloric ratio and all that. But right here there are two numbers. One's an inflammation factor. I haven't figured out what that means either. But this is the estimated glycemic load of 12. So Japanese noodles is medium. And you always have to pay attention to what it says right here, and that's 1 ounce. So look at 1 cup. 1 cup is... I'm sorry, no, that was for 1 cup. 1 cup is 12. Okay. 1 ounce is 3. So you can see that it takes into account the serving size. So you do have to make sure you have the right serving size listed up there. But anyway, it's a really good thing. And then even if you scroll down even further, you've got protein, quality, nutrient balance of different foods, nutrition information kind of broken down by vitamin and all this stuff. So it's kind of an interesting thing to go look at if you haven't done it, and that's nutritiondata.com, okay? But to get the easiest glycemic loads. Now, you'll find that not all foods have glycemic loads, and that's because the glycemic index is only about 20 years old. And a lot of these things have had to be estimated by chemists, I think. So, you know, for a lot of the popular foods out there, the processed foods especially, there is no glycemic load for that. The other thing is that glycemic index, when you're mixing foods, doesn't really work because it's, again, kind of a chemistry deal. So something about, and I'm hoping to learn more about this, but when you have noodles, they have a high glycemic index. When you have beef and cheese, they have a low glycemic. But when you have lasagna, the proteins somehow subtract from the net carbs and reduce the speed at which those noodles are absorbed into your body. So you don't just add up what you eat, but with the glycemic load you can. So it's kind of a weird thing. That's why the glycemic index itself doesn't really work for weight loss, but the glycemic load does. Anyway, if you are even still with me at this point, you're probably a better person than even I am. So anyway, I totally recommend that you check out these books. The one I'm in the middle of right now is Glycemic Index Diet for Dummies, and it's really wonderful. It's got a lot of information in it, plus I've been learning some things from the internet and from some people who have been on this diet and learning a lot, so hopefully you are too, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.